Hey guys, in this video we're gonna go over some VLAN configuration on a Cisco switch. If you don't already know what a VLAN is basically a way of logically separating physically connected devices. Simply put, see if you have a big broadcast domain over here. Let's say you want to separate these two hosts over here, which is host A and B, from the host C and D. So you would create a VLAN and put them in separate VLANs. That way these two stay together and these two stay together. And let's say also you don't want these two not be able to communicate with these two. That's not the reason why you would create a VLAN. That actually has to do with security reasons. Let's say these two devices has some sensitive data that they do not want to share with anybody else, but they do want to be connected to the same switch. You would create a VLAN and put them in a separate VLAN, and nobody else would have access to it. Also, this is a simple topology. You have only 4 devices. If you have a much larger topology, let's say with a switch with 64 ports, if let's say host A sends a broadcast that is destined to the network, you will have 63 broadcasts going out, and that can add up pretty quickly, and your network can be overwhelmed very quickly. So those are the reasons why you would use a VLAN. Now switching over to our topology over here, it's the same setup. We just took these two, put in 2 different VLANs. You have VLAN 2 over here and VLAN 3 over here. Now, as you can see, the broadcast domain has been separated in 2 different ones. Now you have one broadcast domain over here, second broadcast domain over here. Now, one thing with VLANs is if any of these hosts try to send out a ping or any kind of communication to the host that belong to this VLAN, it will not go through. Only hosts that are within the same VLAN can communicate with each other. There are 2 ways of being able to or allowing these hosts to communicate with hosts that are in different VLANs. One of them is you have to introduce a router to this topology, which is called a router on a stick. I know. Then the router will do all the routing, and these hosts in different VLANs will be able to communicate with each other. The next way what you can do is swap this or switch this switch with a layer 3 switch, which has ability to run routing protocols. But in your CCNA exam, you won't have to worry about that. But do know that there are devices out there that are called layer 3 switches, which does routing as well. You can introduce a layer 3 switch into this topology and allow these hosts in inter-VLAN to communicate with each other. Okay, now let's start configuring this VLAN. Just so you know, I will probably run out of time on this video because I do have a 10-minute timer. If that is the case, I'll upload a second video. Anyway, so we go to the command line of the switch. Let me just move it over so you can see. First, we'll check the current VLAN. The command is show VLAN brief. You can just show VLAN, but it gives you a lot of unnecessary information which you probably would not be using for a while. So you just do show VLAN brief. Now in here, you already have 5 VLANs. Now you might say, well, we didn't configure any VLANs. By default, all of your ports automatically belong to VLAN 1 on any Cisco routers. Just remember that. And these 4 VLANs over here, from VLAN IDs from 1002 through 1005, these are default VLANs and you cannot delete those. You probably won't be using those. Those are for like fitting default token ring. Nobody actually uses those, but you cannot get rid of those. So again, the default on a Cisco router, a Cisco switch rather, VLAN is VLAN 1, which is also called the native VLAN. Now what we're going to do, first we're going to test the connectivity between these hosts. First I'm going to send out ping from host A to host B and see what happens. I'm going to open up command prompt, send out a ping 10.1.10.2, and and as you can see, we're going to get a success. Now we're going to send out a ping from the same host on this other side to, let's say, host C, which is 10.10.10.3. So we'll just take that 10.10.10.10.3, 10.10.10.10.1.10. I can't even say it. 10.1.10.3. There we go. Now, as you can see, we get a success on this host too. So all fine and good. Now we're going to configure the VLAN. The command to do that, first you have to go to configuration mode, conf t. Now you have to go to this port because VLANs are enabled on ports. So first let's do the f1/1. So we do interface f1/1. Now the command for enabling a VLAN on a port is switch port mode. Now if you use the iOS help, which is I would definitely recommend you try and use the iOS help as much as you can. So you can see there's three different modes. One is access, one is dynamic, one is trunk. We won't cover the dynamic or the trunk on this video. The dynamic has to do with if the VLANs are assigned to each port dynamically, and the trunk is when you have trunking protocol enabled on a port. Anyway, we're going to do switch port mode access. The second command, that command right there, switch port mode access, that basically configures this port to act as an access port. Now here's another thing you should remember. Cisco switches, all the ports by default are on trunking mode. Now there is no way for you to turn off the trunking mode. There is no command for it, like no switch port mode trunk. The only way to disable trunking mode is to type in this command, basically putting it in access mode. That will disable the trunking mode. So the next command is switch port access VLAN. We have VLAN 2 over here, so we're going to enter VLAN 2. Now you're going to get a message saying access VLAN does not exist, creating VLAN 2, meaning the VLAN didn't exist before. The switch just created it for us. Now we need to go over to this interface over here, which is f0/1. So we do configure terminal, interface f0/1. We're going to do the same thing, switch port mode access, then again switch port access VLAN 2. We're doing that because it is still in the same VLAN 2. Now you're not going to get the message creating VLAN 2 because you've already created it. Now we can use the command show VLAN brief